EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.
Welcome to this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. We are coming to you from our studio with yet another insightful conversation. Now, as Kenya embraces digital learning, educational technology is playing an increasingly important role in supporting teaching and learning. At the center of this is the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, which I'll often refer to as KICD, which is responsible for ensuring digital learning content and tools are curriculum aligned, age appropriate, inclusive, and adopted at scale. But for many EdTech innovators, navigating the KICD approval process can actually be quite challenging. Questions around curriculum alignment, evidence requirements, content design, and submission procedures often become barriers to getting innovative solutions into the classroom. So in this episode, we explore how an alignment toolkit developed by iHUB in collaboration with KICD is making the process simpler and strengthening Kenya's growing ecosystem. Thank you all for joining us on this edition. I'm your host, Ian Wafula. Now, joining me in studio are my guests, Lucy Thome, who's the Learning Science Manager at iHUB. I'm also joined by her colleague, Dominic Kimathi, who's the Senior Product Manager at iHUB, as well as joining us virtually is Evans Rotich, the founder of DALS Learning Limited. Thank you all very, very much for joining us. Lucy, I'll start with you. What gaps did you see that led to the development of the toolkit? And maybe you can just give us a bit of a back history.
All right, thank you so much, Ian. And I think you started by stating actually what the gap we saw was. We've seen the EdTech founders having a very difficult time navigating the KICD approval process. You'll see that some do not even understand what curriculum alignment is. They've built content, they don't understand if it aligns to the standards. We can say KICD standards are our national standards, right? So they don't know how to align their content to their KICD standards. The process also can involve a lot of back and forth. Once you submit your content to KICD, they go through you have to pay, yeah? You make a payment. They go through your content. There's maybe need for resubmission. There maybe need for corrections. You're sent back with your content. If it was just a few errors here and there, there's no need for resubmission. So no need for paying again. But if you find a lot of errors, there's a resubmission fee. So it's expensive and there's a lot of back and forth. So we saw that challenge, and that's why we built the toolkit, something that can help these EdTech founders just have somewhere a guide they can look at and go through, and even before they submit, self-assess the product, understand what KICD looks at. There are different themes that KICD looks at when they're looking at your content. Understand this content, understand what is the expectation of KICD, and do a self-assessment, align their content according to the expectation from KICD. But I'll let Dominic add on to that.
Yeah, Dominic, you can tell us more about that, especially from a tech perspective. What does that tech toolkit look like?
Yeah, so I think mostly when you think about like tech people or what we call tech bros, they're trying to kind of make things.
Are you a tech bro yourself?
I'm a tech bro myself. So I'm here to make things easier for tech bros, right? Yeah, so but then you see that, so for example, you find that the content is for grade 1, but the language being used is for someone who's grade 8. So how do they make age appropriate content? It could be things like you're using videos and there's white people, for example, even if it's animation. So you need to have content that relates to the person. If you're talking to, your content aligns to people who are refugees, you cannot talk about things like snow, something they haven't seen in their own eyes. So you want to then relate their content to fit the realities of the people who are the target audience of their products.
And Evans, let me bring you in on this. Do you relate to some of the gaps that Lucy and Dominic are actually talking about? And as a founder, are these things that you'd also seen yourself?
There was the initial document that was prepared by KICD, the standard guidelines on how you can develop these materials. So luckily for us, we were able to look at how do we align. So we started with grade 3 content that was in 2019, ensure that we align to the standards, have the content curated. But again, the process was of course very difficult because it was also new. We were new in this process. You would get a whole booklet of corrections because of the many things that the curators were able to see. But You see, eventually the product came out to be a super product. So those are the challenges that, of course, even for a startup, it becomes so challenging for them. If, for example, they want to develop materials, they don't know how this content will be curated. And you see, when it comes to even content itself, they come in various formats. KICD gives you development of videos. How do you develop a video? How do you develop an audio book? How do you develop HTML5 file? How do you develop a SCORM file? How do you develop an app? And there are guidelines on how to do this. But of course, this alignment now that iHUB, in partnership with KICD, have come up, now makes it so easy for many developers also now to just come up and develop these materials, have them curated and approved.
Thank you, Evans. I think the one common thing that I'm getting from the three of you is the importance of curriculum alignment, especially for innovators. Let's maybe discuss this a bit more. Dominic, why is curriculum alignment actually important, especially when it comes to targeting innovators like Evans?
Yeah, so remember with these EdTech solutions, one of the key things that the solutions do is to reinforce classroom learning, right? And what you want to ensure is that there's no inconsistencies or inaccuracies when a student is going through the content on the digital platform, and then in class, they're told something different. So that can bring a lot of mistrust. Remember also parents need to understand that, okay, if I'm paying to use this solution, my child is actually getting quality standards that meets the national standards stipulated by the government. Also, I think another thing is that, with digital platforms, it's more on a global scale, right? Anyone can access it. So you want to be able to have that quality standards. So someone can go through your platform and think, okay, this is right content for my child, right? So that's why I think it's important for them to actually align with the curriculum.
And maybe, Lucy, you can tell us more from a learner's experience when it comes to relatability of the content.
On the curriculum alignment, one of the key things that even the founders themselves forget when they're building this curriculum is, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal for your content is learner outcomes. What is the learner going to gain out of this? So it's very key, it's very, very important for you to look at the learning journey and see what is the learning outcome, so that you can align your curriculum and your content with the different kind of learners, which now then comes to your question in terms of contextualizing, yeah? You as Dominic is saying, if a learner is seeing content that it's not even relatable in terms of our African or our Kenyan context, they would not, it's not doing anything for them. It's not helping them learn. And similarly, if you mismatch the learning in terms of, in learning science, we have what we call scaffolding. You're building on prior knowledge as well. So you're not bringing me something to learn that is off. I don't understand. It doesn't even match my grade or my level of learning. It's building on prior knowledge. What is this prior knowledge that I already have as a learner? So that learning journey goes smoothly and in good stages. And the learner now is fully engaged and able to actually grow. You bring the correct assessment for the correct learning outcomes, and now you're able to take that learner into a journey of learning that is suitable for them, curated for them as well. And also, I mean, there's so much we can speak about in terms of that learner journey. But yeah,
but it also makes learning easier for them.
Yeah,
as well.
It is. Of course, it does. It does.
Yeah. Let me bring in Evans from an innovator's perspective, and I think this is the right time for you to tell us a bit more about DAL's education and kind of the innovative gap that you're feeling before we talk about curriculum relatability for the learners.
Great, thank you. Now, luckily for us, we have been in this for quite some time now. It started in 2019. And as I mentioned, this is where we're facing some challenges when it came to development, submission, curation, correction, and eventually getting the approvals for the same materials. That was in 2019. But now, learning out of experience, we were now able to see how do we align these materials here. First, what founders also normally forget is how do you bring in the people who understand pedagogy to develop the digital materials? So for us, we have mastered that, and we have teachers, we have curriculum experts, we have software engineers, and we have instructional designers who have also been trained. And the goodness is that at least KICD has been doing a very good job. Most of the trainings that we've also been doing is or attending are actually organized by KICD itself and the Kenya Publishers Association. Now, of course, iHUB has now come in to take this to another level so that we have these trainings for people to really understand how this digital content is developed. Now, coming back to dance learning, for us, we have now content that runs from PP1, that is pre-primary 1, all the way to grade 9. We are actually developing grade 10. Submissions for grade 9 for curation is on Thursday, but we are hoping maybe with the tension that is around the country, maybe that one would be pushed to next week. But we have content already, and for us, we normally develop everything. We develop all the learning areas in HTML5 format. So we package this content, submit to KICD. Of course, now that at least for us, we have been able to master this, again, getting a lot of trainings from iHUB and now collaborating with KICD. We take these materials, they are curated by KICD, the corrections are the corrections are sent to us. And now the beauty with us is that at least we've known what they want, we know what the curators want, we know what the principal curators want, and we know what the chief curators also expect from us. So we put them together. We have a team that is experienced, put together these resources, and then eventually now have the content approved. Once the content is approved, and we are happy with the support that we got from iHUB, for example, for grade 8 content that we submitted, we are the only EdTech firm in Kenya that has all the 10 out of 10 approved by KICD. That is for grade 8 content. We are hoping the 11 learning areas that we are submitting for grade 9 also will have everything approved. And of course, this is also from the support that we've also had in this academy. So we have people who help us now to develop these materials, package them, because there is also the packaging bit. Some fail at the point of packaging. So you package this content, ensure that it is seamless, it is in a way that is easy to be utilized, and then once we've gotten approval for ourselves, what we normally do is that we participate in government tenders. So we have supplied government grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, 5 and 6, 7 as well. We supplied government. Grade 8 is where we're waiting for them to give us actually float a tender so that we can supply this.
All right, thank you, Evans, and congratulations for the progress that you've made. I think now that we understand how this works, I'm just curious to take us a little back, Dominic. Obviously, iHUB saw the gaps and decided to approach KICD to come up with this alignment toolkit. Could you tell us to what extent was KICD involved and how this particular collaboration took, the process it took?
Yeah, so KICD was very much involved. Remember, they were the ones who are going to approve the content that these startups will provide. So we at iHUB, we were part of the Mastercard EdTech Fellowship Program, and we supported about 36 startups. So for most of these startups, they need to be approved. And also remember that for your solution to be used in schools, the first question they will ask you is your content KICD approved? With that, no teacher will want to touch it. Going back to the question, so what KICD does, of course, is provide the technical expertise, because they have curriculum experts who then come in and be able to assess your content. They also help you review and validate, okay, is the toolkit meeting our standards? What are gaps that are there? Are we able to show this? How are you going to submit it? So that's how they usually come in part to work with us. And of course, also we had Zeraki, who was also is an EdTech startup, for them to be able to try it out and use it, and then be able to see if they actually get approved. So that was the process.
But could you actually tell us about the components that it has?
We've built this toolkit in a very easy way for anyone to use. It's so complicated. It's actually like breaking down the process KICD takes you through into different components. Let me just explain a bit. KICD has about 11 thematic pillars they look at when they're looking at your content. You'll have conformity to curriculum, assessment, and a couple. There are 11 of them. So we have taken each pillar at a time. We take each pillar, we explain to you, there's an explanation of what that pillar means, what are the key words? For example, conformity to curriculum. We're looking at words like, what does curriculum alignment mean? What does learning outcome mapping means? And then we have defined these words for you and then given you a video to watch. When Dominic is talking about that process, when we had KICD, Zeraki in the room, when we are co-creating this toolkit, we have videos from those sessions explaining what KICD means when they tell you conformity to curriculum. So you have that video you can watch. You have the different meanings of the different terminologies they look at, the themes they're looking at, and then you have an example of how now you as a founder can make sure that your curriculum has the learning outcome mapping, has the curriculum alignment, all the different things they look at. If it's assessment, what does assessment mean? What is important about assessment? Are you trying to measure? What competencies are you trying to measure? All those things. And then the different definitions and, of course, examples. So easily, Ian, you can take that toolkit, look at it against your content and be able to self-assess. This is what I've done. This is what I've done. And then we've given you a checklist. So you can see I'm 90%, aligned with KICD process and requirements.
Which is actually takes me to my next question, because Dominic was talking about how teachers are asking whether this content is KICD approved. What about the parents who are watching us today? Why should they care? And why should this be a question that they put out to schools or innovators?
If content is KICD approved or aligned, it gives the parents that confidence that your learners, the children, are getting age-appropriate content that's aligned to their learning goals. The learning outcomes are very, very well mapped and all that. It gives the parents and even the teachers that confidence that this toolkit is aligned to the national standards.
Yeah, and Evans, maybe there's a founder or an innovator watching you out there today and they have this idea that they want to implement. What's your advice in terms of them ensuring that they fast check with the toolkit? Why should this be, a starting point for them?
There was a time when we were engaging as founders, and what I noted is that some edtech firms are very good materials, but when you look at that content, they would not pass KICD curation process. Why? It is because the content is well developed, but it is for the wrong audience. So that's why this toolkit now comes in to tell you, if you're developing a PP1, a pre-primary one content, this is how the voiceover should be. These are the illustrations. This is how you are going to package in order to address the learning outcomes. And this is how you are going to assess. And when you look at even the CBE itself, the competence-based education, and assessment, the CBA assessment part, how are assessments in CBC curriculum tested? So when you understand that whole area, you'll now be able to see even the kind of questions that you'll be able to bring in that particular assessment. You would find, for example, someone bringing multiple choice questions in a pre-primary one child. That one does not work. Multiple choice questions can only come to higher grades, like, for example, grade 7, 8 there, but not in the lower grades. In the lower grades, how do you assess? How do you provide? How does the video the video should not go for long. It's supposed to be. So those are the things that this alignment document toolkit would now be able to help you as a founder to see. Yes, you have very good developers, you have very good content creators, you have very good instructional designers, you have nice voiceover artists and video developers and photographers and all these people. But now, how do you align all these skills in order to come up with a product that now will be curated by KICD, will be realized, will be put in the correct place, and then you now provide the resources to those particular learners. So that is one area that the founder should actually see before they venture into this.
I think Lucy has something to add. I saw you.
I wanted to double click on what Evans is saying, because founders are building very flashy innovations, very nice one, but very pedagogically weak. they cannot help the learners learn. They are there. They have too many animations. They have too many. It's getting the learner into a state of what's the word? Cognitive overload, because it's everywhere.
This be because then they're not developing it with the learners. I mean, the learner is in their minds, right? But is it because they're not involving the learners in the development? Do you think this could be?
Which is very important. You need to do that, and a lot of testing, a lot of learner-centered design. When you're building your content. So yeah, there's a lot of gap in that. When I was adding that, I wanted to say, even if you're not building content for KICD, this toolkit is also very helpful, because it helps you understand learning. How does the learning science bit of it, how does learning happen? How do you build your content? How do you make sure that the learner journey is seamless and the learning outcomes are achieved? Even if you're not building content just for KICD approval, please, it's also a good toolkit if you're building any learning content. It's a good toolkit for you to use.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question, Dominic, because tech is always moving and it's always evolving. Has the toolkit had this in mind?
Yes, definitely, because also remember, one of the key things about the toolkit is about making this content accessible to everyone. So the question will be, not everyone has the same device, not everyone has a MacBook. Some people might need to access your content maybe through SMS. How do they get the same level of learning with someone who has a bigger, kind of better machine? There's also, when you're thinking about also age, right? When the free primary education was brought in, we had an 84-year-old learner starting class 1. How do you create that content for that 85-year-old to be able to progress the same as that 8-year-old who's joining grade 1? So these are the kind of things we look at and make sure that, okay, first, some of the tech could also be using, your app is very heavy, so it's not be able to accessible in case there's no internet. So you want to factor and ensure that your solution works for everyone. There's also learners with disabilities. How do you also access your content? That's why he was mentioning if there's a voiceover, it needs to come out with something, with captions, so that you're able to read. If it's a video, how do you enhance it so that someone who has visual impairment is also able to utilize the same content? So these are the kind of the nuances we look about to ensure that this tech is accessible.
Yeah, and Evans, initially we've talked about how this process of using the toolkit is actually quite tiring, and it might be actually discouraging to some of the developers and innovators. So what advice would you give entrepreneurs who feel intimidated by the approval requirements? Because you might find that someone actually has a brilliant idea, but just because they know that they'll be dealing with the KICD process, then they are turned off by this.
Of course, they should not lose hope. And they should look at that there are many other opportunities that are out there. But if you're building solution for Kenya, then you should actually be able to align to the national curriculum, to the KICD, that is Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development Designs. And now iHUB has come in to provide you with a toolkit that will be able to simplify your process. I like what also Lucy said, that even if you're not building this content for KICD, that this content here should be curated and approved by KICD, you should be able to utilize the toolkit so that you can build content that can be accessed anywhere. The founder should actually look at, how do I really package this content here using the toolkit as a primary tool to help me have the correct content before you do even any other form of investment.
All right, thank you, Evans. I'll come back to you for final comments as I'm making my final round, but I'll start with you, Dominic. In terms of how do you see the toolkit evolving into the future, and also you can tell us available resources for innovators out there to get onto this toolkit?
Yeah, so definitely. So the toolkit is not just for EdTech innovators, right? There's curriculum experts, there's policy makers, there's also people who want to invest in education. So I think as more Kenya, the country goes digital, of course, there's more kind of an outreach for people to then use this toolkit to be able to then align to the curriculum. So I'd say that's how I see it in the tech side, how it will go.
Yeah, and I think for you, Lucy, I'd like you to tell us from a learner's perspective or a learning science perspective, both from the learner as well as parents and teachers within the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think, and I'm almost repeating something I've said, beyond the compliance, because people will come to us because they want that KICD approval, and beyond compliance and any operational challenges or anything, let's think about the toolkit as something that will support your product to achieve the desired learning outcomes with your learners. So let's consider curriculum alignment as a learning outcomes foundation. if you want your learners to achieve the goals of the learning solution you have, curriculum alignment needs to be very important. Yeah.
Evans, you have our final word because, from the conversation here, it is very clear that innovators and founders like yourself are actually almost the primary target for this particular toolkit. So what's your final word for other founders and innovators watching you today?
Having understood that there is a digital market, there is a space for digital consumption of digital content in Kenya today and outside the country, look at the toolkit, utilize the toolkit. It has now simplified the process that KICD that you locally take through in order for you to get your content approved, using, of course, merging with the supplementary curation standard document that was developed by KICD. So this one here helps you to break down that process in order for you to get your content curated and approved. And of course, if for the parents and the learners who are watching, they can actually go to Google Play Store and get approved, curated and approved digital content from Google Play Store. Just such Dance Learning, and you'll get content that is curated and approved.
All right, thank you very much. That is Evans Rotich, who's the founder of DALS Learning Limited. We also have in studio Dominic Kimathi, the senior product manager at iHUB, and his colleague Lucy Thome, the learning science manager at iHUB. Well, that's it for this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. Remember to follow us on social media using the hashtag EdTech Mondays to share your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Special thanks to our sign language interpreter, Miss Rose Omolo. My name is Wafula. Until next time, goodbye.
EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.